We'll start the meeting. Sorry for the delay. We're making sure that we had all of our participants with us tonight. So, Jim, would you please lead us in Pledge of Allegiance, please, sir?
Would everyone join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Jim. And I'd like to make a couple of announcements. First, I would like to, for sure, thank everybody that attended our Tom Paine event by Zoom. I know that's a little bit unusual for people to have that kind of event by Zoom, but the feedback, although we had a couple of glitches like we usually do with Zoom, it turned out well, and the feedback was very good. And we certainly want to thank our sponsors, all of the good people that helped sponsor the event, and we raised a little money to help support our projects. And the money is going to be split 50-50 between Florida Veterans for Common Sense and our fund, which runs our projects, which would be projects like the SURF and Veterans in Focus and those kind of things. So it's really a heartfelt thanks when we say it's very appreciated, and we couldn't do all that we do as an organization without the support of good sponsors. And Jim and Rich are to be thanked a lot because they were able to round up a lot of these sponsors. So thank you too. And then another announcement for our group, our surf project, we're going to have a volunteer day, March 6th, Saturday, March 6th. We'll start out at 9 o'clock. And this shouldn't be real hard work. We have about 200 plants, small plants that we're going to plant as understory and pollinators in the microforest. So come out to the celery fields on March 6th. Make sure you put that on your calendar right now. And that'll be a good time. I mean, with any luck, we'll be able to plant all those plants in about an hour and a half or so, and then we can use that opportunity to socialize a little bit. It's not difficult to do. All you have to do is show up and volunteer. There's lots of little tasks you could do. If you don't want to plant something, there's other things that can be done. And the only thing that's requested, the county requests on these volunteer days, if you haven't done so, to sign a waiver for the county, because we're actually installing these plants on county property. So we'll have those available for you there on March 6th. So please come out and enjoy that, and hopefully we'll have good weather. So at this point then, unless Jim or Rich has any more announcements, I will turn it over to Rich to introduce Margaret Good.
Yes, Gene, before I do that, I'd like to give our sponsors for the Thomas Paine Party their due acknowledgement. And we will get the right one up here, hopefully soon. I don't know what's going on here. This thing is cursed.
Rich, why don't we go ahead and Margaret, and then we can show the sponsors after her talk.
Okay, all right. I will endeavor to do that. Try again. Here. Okay, well, it is my pleasure to introduce Margaret Good as tonight's featured speaker. Margaret ran for Congress in 2020 for Florida District 16. After a hard-fought campaign, she lost her election bid to incumbent Vern Buchanan. Margaret is formerly served as representative for District 72. She was a deputy Democratic leader and a ranking member of the Health Market Reform Subcommittee. In addition, she sat on several more committees. Margaret is a graduate of the University of Florida Law School. After moving to Sarasota, where she practices law at Matthews Eastmore, Margaret quickly engaged in community work, joining the boards of the Sarasota County Bar Association and the Minnesota Track Club. Margaret is a strong supporter of veterans, and in particular, Florida Veterans for Common Sense. Margaret will be speaking tonight about the current political environment. Without further ado, please give Margaret a warm welcome.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be here with all of you tonight. Anne, thank you so much for reaching out. And Jean and Rich, I appreciate y'all's continued support. As I think all of you know, Veterans for Common Sense is one of my favorite groups. I always feel so supported and love coming to talk to y'all. When I was initially asked to speak, the request was to talk about Biden's environmental policies. And so that is what I am planning to do. However, I'm happy to talk, if anybody wants to talk about the political landscape in general, we can have a conversation after that after my talk about this. I really wish I could see all of you, but I understand the need for the panelist view occasionally. So just know that I'm looking at all your names and thinking about you. And before I start, I also want to say thank you so much to all of you for your support over the last 3.5 years in my campaigns and as I was serving. Your advocacy, the things that y'all taught me are really invaluable, and I really appreciate all that we did together and all that y'all did for me. So I decided that I would do a top 10 countdown of the top 10 things that the Biden administration has done for the environment since President Biden took office a month and a day ago. And there are way more than 10, which is one of the reasons that I think we are all breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief, because we were certainly going in the wrong direction, as my presentation will show. So hold on a second. I will attempt to share the screen. Well, oh, here we go. Well, I don't know, Rich, why I can't either. It worked when I
You'll be
tried it
able to get it,
earlier.
Margaret, because the screen share is for all panelists, so you should be able to get it.
You should be, open your document up first. I think that was
Oh,
my
okay, that's
problem.
probably why. Hold on, let me see.
And then make sure you select it before you hit share.
All right. I had such great people helping me with these things during the campaign that I never had to spend a lot of time figuring it out on my own. Well, it's still not coming up. Select a window or an application that you want to share.
Is it open?
Oh. Yeah, it's open. Let's see. File. Share.
Make sure nothing else is open. You have this.
Well, if it doesn't work in 1 minute, then I will
Okay.
just go ahead.
Try emailing it to me and I can do it.
Margaret, I'll try making you a host.
Okay.
Then you'll have to transfer back to me after you're through with your talk.
Okay.
The host, but we'll try that and see if that won't work.
Oh, and okay. And while we're doing this, I just wanted to remind everybody that if you have questions for Margaret, we'll do that at the end and type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen.
Yeah, for whatever reason, it's not coming up.
Okay, can you quickly email it to me and you can start, and then when I get it, I'll just catch up to you.
Yeah. Y'all can't see that, can you?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so the top 10. So you know, Biden, as we all know, had two serious issues that he had to deal with respect to the environment and with respect to a lot of other policy issues. And the first is dealing with all the bad things that Trump did. And then the second is not just reversing some of the bad, hopefully, of the bad things that Trump has done, but also charting a way forward. And I think, you know, in particular with climate change, it is really important that we are charting a way forward, because we are right here at the precipice of major climate issues. You know, we saw what happened in Texas, what is happening in Texas. You know, we see the hurricanes that are continually increasing in intensity, and the world is warming. And so he's got a lot of important things to do in front of him. And so the number 10 of my top 10 list is Biden re-entering the Paris Climate Accord. And you may say that's the most important, but I don't think so. I think there is a lot more to do. I put it as number 10 because I was like, come on, we never should have left to begin with. And because I think it sets up the conversation really well for the rest of the things that Biden has done in the last month and a day. If you look at where the United States is in our emissions, our emissions comprise about 13% of the world's total. And in the past 4 years, because if you remember, Trump vowed to get out of the Paris Climate Accord like weeks after he got into office, and it did not officially take until November 4th of 2020. So we were only officially out of the Paris Climate Accord for about 107 days. But during his entire 4 years of his presidency, he did nothing to protect our environment and to ensure that we were making real progress on climate. So I think it is one of the most important things that Biden did was to re-enter the Paris Climate Accord. But there's much more to come. So it got the number 10 spot. Number 9 on my list of top 10 is undoing decisions to slash the size of national monuments. In my slide, I thought I was very clever because I was like, who doesn't love the Antiquities Act? And you all may know that most federal monuments are created under the Antiquities Act, which gives presidents unilateral authority to preserve land and waters as national monuments. The President Obama was, I believe, the president that did the most with the Antiquities Act after Roosevelt. And then Trump decided every single president has increased the national monuments, except for Trump, who got rid of, slashed of the 1.35 million acre site at Bears Ear in Utah to about 202,000 acres. He also reduced Grand Staircase Escalante, which is in Utah, 50%. And he stopped protecting the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts, which is the first ever marine national monument. So Biden, on the first day of office, reviewed those decisions, or his executive order ordered that those decisions be reviewed, and I think we can anticipate that those will once again become national monuments in the full amount. The 8th The 8th item on my top 10 list is killing the Keystone XL pipeline permit. This is a really interesting environmental issue. It has spanned 3 presidencies. Obama decided, fought against it, and it didn't happen under Obama. Trump brought it back, and now I think as a clear indication of where Biden is going, he, on his first day of office, he signed an executive order to revoke the permit. And I think the executive order that he signed was really interesting. It said, the permit is hereby revoked. Leaving the Keystone XL pipeline permit in place would not be consistent with my administration's economic and climate imperatives. And I see that as a real indication that Biden is not just being an obstructionist, but is really looking to the future and looking at green energy and transitioning us to a cleaner future where we actually hopefully have a future. So that's, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Keystone pipeline. I know Canada is really disappointed, not particularly happy about it, although I think they're happy about a lot of the other environmental things that Biden has done. And certainly the developers of the pipeline have already indicated that they're going to file suit. So I don't think this is the last we will hear about the pipeline, but I do appreciate that that Biden has put that issue front and center. Number 6 is, right? Number 7, I almost missed one, is issuing a temporary moratorium on drilling in the Arctic Wildlife Refuge. So much that happened in the last several days of the Trump administration that this may even have just flown by you, but in the 11th hour of his presidency, Donald Trump announced that it had finalized 10-year leases for oil and drilling in the northernmost slice of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, as sort of a parting gift to Alaska and to developers in Alaska. And Biden is, not the next day, I think it was actually the very next day on Inauguration Day, temporarily halted those. So his executive order directs the Interior Department to review the oil leasing program for the refuge and, as appropriate and consistent with applicable law, do a new analysis of its potential environmental impacts. The legal argument that they're resting it on was that there was no actual environmental impact study done before the leases were given out. And so I think that it looks like there'll be a lot of litigation on this. Interestingly, the state of Alaska bought 7 of those leases. So they're going to be part of bringing, there was already discussion of litigation and negotiation about what that is going to end up looking like. But then number 6 is very similar to number 7. Biden also paused oil and gas leasing on federal land. This seems to be a little bit of a sticky legal issue as well, but it looks like this is within his authority, and I am 100% for moving us to renewable energy. And I do think that sometimes you have to take pretty austere measures in order to make people uncomfortable enough to push over. And I think some of these things that Biden is doing now is really challenging the status quo to see how far we can get, how quickly, because as Senator Kerry has said, if you followed what he's what he's been talking about and the things that he's done in the past month. What he said is that this is the decisive decade. If we do not take drastic climate action this decade, then we are going to experience some real catastrophic issues. And so another sound commitment to combating climate change by the Biden administration. I also think it's interesting that when he signed this executive order that paused oil and gas leasing on federal lands, he talked, this is what he said. He said, this is Biden, he said, today is climate day at the White House, which means it's jobs day at the White House. And he mentioned during his remarks that he is working on creating 1 million jobs in the automotive sector, transitioning cars to electric. And so, I don't think that any of these great environmental policies that are taking place in a vacuum. There is an understanding that how important our economy is to our environment, and how we've got to pull both of those levers at the same time. Number 5 on my top 10 list is reversing the rollbacks to vehicle emission standards. I almost feel like this should have been number 11, because it is another one of those things that you're like, what? Why did Trump do that? Most of the vehicle manufacturers didn't even take advantage of it because they weren't going in that direction. But thank goodness he reversed those rollbacks, and it looks like there may be more stringent vehicle emission standards. They have not yet been announced, but something to look forward to. Number 4 in my top 10 list is Biden has reestablished a working group on the social cost of greenhouse gases. And I know that some of you understand this perhaps far better than I do, but this is really key, because the way you value the social cost of greenhouse gases is how you justify the policies that you're promoting. For instance, when President Obama was in office, he valued the social cost of carbon at about $45. Trump valued it as low as $1, and it was the way, and President Trump used that valuation as a way to get rid of the Clean Power Plan, for instance, which was an initiative to get all of the states to lower their carbon emissions. So it'll be interesting to see where Biden goes with this, what his working group comes up with as far as the social cost of carbon. And I think, there's a lot more that we know now, even than we did when President Biden was in office. You look at, for instance, you could expand the social cost of carbon to include the natural disasters and how expensive those are. And, I've talked about this. I feel like almost every time I speak in public about the environment, the importance of investing now so that you don't have to pay later. And that is a concept that we have not done very well in Florida and in the United States. But I feel like that Biden is starting from that place, and that we can have some real hope that we're going to see some positive change in this administration. The number 3 in my top 10, and I actually had this one at number 9 for a while, and I moved it way up because I think it is something that's a little bit overlooked, but really, really important. Biden directed intelligence agencies and the military to do more to prepare for heightened risk of climate change. If you think about what climate change looks like, and you think about the uncertainty in weather patterns, you think about these major natural disasters, and you think about developing countries, not to mention, I mean, you've seen what happens, firsthand in Florida and Texas, but think about developing countries. It leads to migration, it leads to political instability, it leads to lack of, scarcity of resources. All of these things have foreign policy implications, have military implications. And I think understanding that and studying it and making sure that we are prepared, not just to deal with our own infrastructure issues, which, there are some security concerns when whole states no longer have power. That kind of, breach in our security systems is also really scary, but it's also thinking about what the world is going to look like in 20, 30, 40 years if we're experiencing the kinds of natural disasters and the kinds of climate change that scientists are telling us that we will be experiencing if we don't make the changes that we need to make. So I really appreciate that forethought. Think that that's one of the unsung heroes of what Biden has done so far in this administration on climate. The last two in my top 10 list are not what he's done, but what his overarching goals are. I think that I want to end with the ways that we need to end with what we need to watch for, and to make sure that he continues to do the things that we believe that he will do, because he seems completely committed. But there's nothing wrong with holding elected officials accountable. So my number 2 on my top 10 list is Biden's goal of eliminating pollution from fossil fuels in the power sector by 2035 and from the US economy overall by 2050. Those are lofty goals. They are going to take major measures. But as we have talked about in 1 through 8 or 10 through 2 of my list, Biden's certainly reaching out and taking the actions that need to be taken. But I think that it's not, this is another one of those things that it can't be all about executive orders, because as we can see, executive orders can be changed by the next president. These are issues that need to be legislated at the federal level. We also need some real strong state buy-in. And so, this is the real hard work that's going to come in the next 3 years and some odd months. Currently, just so you know, 61% of the nation's electric power comes from natural gas and coal, 20% from nuclear, and 17% from wind, solar, and renewable energy. So we've got a long way to go in meeting those goals, and it's going to be interesting to see what Biden's plan is to get us there. Number 1 on my list, here it is, people. The thing that I like the best about Biden's environmental initiatives thus far is his commitment to conserve 30% of the country's lands and waters in the next 10 years and 50% by 2050. And I chose that one as number 1 because I love land conservation so much. It is, I know y'all have heard me talk about it before. It's just, I don't think there's anything more valuable that we can do from a water quality perspective, from a climate change perspective. I was thinking about it the other day, and it's, what we do when we develop the earth is it's like we put a little insulation jacket on it, and just imagine wearing all of your ski gear out in the summer in Florida. That's sort of what we're doing to the world. And if we give the world a little bit of room to breathe, then it's going to help everything. And certainly, it's so good for people in general to be able to get out into nature. So I love, love, love land conservation. And I'm really excited about his goal of 30% of land conservation in the next 10 years. And it sounds like the way that they're planning to do that is through partnerships and a lot of on the ground effort. And of course, we've got our land conservation is in Sarasota and Southwest Florida, that I know will be continue to play a major role in making sure that we preserve the lands that we need to preserve in Florida. And I'm really excited to see what else gets conserved and preserved in the next 10 years. So there you have it. My top 10. I'm sorry you didn't get to see my slideshow, but it really wasn't that great anyway. Really, really happy to be with y'all tonight. I wanted to mention one other thing that I have been concerned about, that I think that I think it might have gone under some of y'all's radar, but it's something that we need to make sure that we're talking about, especially with our federal elected officials. And that is that one of the things that Trump did before he left office was allow the use of a broadband antibiotic, and I'm gonna have to look at the name of this thing, and a neurotoxic pesticide called aldicarb, allow them to be used to prevent citrus greening in Florida. And I am a huge advocate for agriculture, but this neurotoxin has been banned like all over the world. It's really not the right answer. I don't know how many growers are using it in Florida currently, but it's something that needs to be reversed. And I'm a little bit worried it's one of those things that isn't going to get a lot of attention. So if you see, there was a really good article about it, I don't know, about a month or two ago, I think in the Orlando Times, but if you see articles about it, please pay attention and keep it on your radar, because that is something that could really affect our water quality too. Appreciate y'all. Would love to answer any questions you have or chat further. Oh, and I also wanted to tell you, a lot of y'all have been asking me what I'm doing. I am back working at my law firm, so if you need a lawyer, you can call me. And I'm more than willing to help with projects, or if you have ideas that you think I can be helpful, please let me know.
Well, thank you so much, Margaret, for your really insightful remarks on Biden's environmental initiatives. I'm going to get the elephant out of the room first. And the first question from Jerry Stricker, he says, Margaret, do you plan on running for political office in the future? I hope you will.
Thank you. I am so I was so honored to be the state rep, and it was such a huge honor to be the candidate for this congressional district, and just a really amazing experience to get to stand with so many of y'all and fight the good fight. But right now I'm pretty happy hanging out with my dog and my husband and my law partners. So, maybe someday, but for now I'm really just happy to do what I can to be helpful.
All right, well, thank you. The next question is from Rana Bazzini, and she wants to know, executive orders can be undone by the next administration. What are the chances of getting legislation addressing all of these issues that you rose?
I mean, that's a good point. I think that there is a really good chance of getting legislation. I think just by the sheer number of executive orders that Biden has presented on environmental issues and on climate change, that he is making this a top priority. Appointing Senator Kerry to the task force shows how committed he is to it. And so I believe that we will see some real substantive climate legislation that passes through Congress. I also think that it's something that is gaining bipartisan support. I don't know how far the right is willing to go to combat climate change, but certainly, it's becoming part of our daily discussions that we're having at the kitchen table. And I think Republicans are starting to realize that. And so I think there'll be room for some bipartisan legislation, but, of course, the good news is that we don't have to be bipartisan if we can't be. We can still get the things done that we need to get done. So certainly, that's, and it will be interesting to see what Biden's theory of the case is on executive orders. Trump ruled by executive order. He didn't get very much passed except for the tax bill. And besides that, everything he did, not everything, but almost everything he did was by executive order. And clearly, that makes it easy to undo. And it doesn't take a lot of support and a lot of understanding of how the legislative process works. I think we're fortunate that President Biden understands how the legislative process works and is committed to working with his, former colleagues to create some good change. So I feel really good about where we're starting, and I think we're going to get to really good places too.
All right, great. The next question is from Jack Ford, and he wants to know, what is the most damaging thing Donald Trump did to the environment that our president will not be able to reverse?
I read that. That's a really good question. I'll have to, policy-wise, I would have to get back to you, but I think that from a global perspective, the most damaging thing that he did that there's nothing that we can do about is 4 years of inaction and going backwards. I mean, we've really reached a critical stage, and we lost 4 years, and we lost the world's respect. So much of that ends up being really, really important. And so I think that's, at the end of the day, he stole 4 years of our environmental future.
Thank you. One additional question, maybe a few more people will put some questions in, but there's a lot more talk now about putting a price on carbon. And one idea that has some bipartisan appeal is using a carbon fee and dividend type scheme, such as the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. Do you think that has a chance of passing this Congress?
We'll see. I've done a little bit of reading and research on it, but not enough to be able to give you a good discussion of whether or not I think it will pass. I think that we're going to see some really innovative new ideas. I think that climate change and climate action is one of the places that we will see pretty bold action, but exactly what that looks like, I don't know yet.
Okay, thank you. Well, at this point, we're really, I'm surprised, but out of questions. So do you have any?
I have a question, Rich.
Sure.
If I may. Margaret, one position that our group has been working hard on is the No Roads to Ruin, which I'm sure you're familiar with. What is your read on this session's legislature? Is there a possibility that we can get that stopped? And what's the best techniques that we can use to try to stop it? Where are the levers that we need to push
Those are really good questions. And Jean, I can get back to you on that. I can talk to some of my legislative colleagues and see more in depth what's happening. I think that there is a chance that it will die. I was pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised that it keeps on coming back as the worst idea ever. Because sometimes, you know, the legislature passes the worst idea ever, and then people sort of forget, and it just keeps, you know, it keeps on going, and it happens, and then everybody's like, how did that happen? Well, remember when legislature passed this terrible idea? But it's, you know, this continues to come up. You know, every couple of months you see negative articles about it. The media is following it. You know, I think continuing to make sure that our, you know, our local media is covering it, sending letters to the editor on it on a regular basis, I think is always a good way to make it clear that these are the issues that we want to read about in our newspaper. And then, you know, I think part of the reason that it passed was because it was a priority of Senator Galvano, and he's no longer there. So there might not be as much political interest in it now. I don't know. But I can do some digging and sort of see what, you know, who's pulling the levers on it this session.
Yeah, the problem with it, it seems to have, it's like a doll that you can't push over. It keeps bouncing back.
Well, I mean, that's almost a good thing, because the way they wrote the law, my recollection is that it has to pass the legislature again. Like, they had to do an initial study. They didn't give themselves much time for it, so it was not going to be a particularly in-depth study, and then it had to pass again. And I think that's supposed to happen this legislative session, if I recall correctly. So we may, you know, this might be the time where we can really advocate and make it stop, because it really doesn't, I mean, such a bad idea. Oh yeah, you're right, Rosalind. Electing Trump was the worst idea ever. But from the Florida legislature's perspective, I mean, the toll roads on my top 10 list, they would definitely fall in the top 10 for the last several years in the Florida legislature.
So that's a great segue into Steve Murphy's question. He says, given how many Floridians are concerned about climate change, why is it so difficult to get anything passed in the legislature? We could not even get a study passed last year.
Yeah, that's, you know, I filed, y'all may remember, several really mild climate change bills last session, and of course none of them got a hearing. And I mean, I think y'all all know this, and the answer to this question. The Republicans, you know, especially the Republicans in leadership, care more about big business than they do about our environment, frankly, and they make decisions based on, you know, based on political allyship and their relationships with corporations, and not on what's in the best, in my opinion, not on what's in the best interest for Floridians. And we see it happening over and over again. You know, then of course they because they are a Republican trifecta and have been for 22 years now, they create the districts, and so they create the districts so that it's hard for Democrats to win, and the cycle just keeps on perpetuating itself. And so that's why you see the statewide measures like land preservation, you know, the constitutional amendment for land preservation back in 2014 passing overwhelmingly and then never getting implemented in the legislature. And this is just a continual cycle that that is proving really hard to break.
Thank you. Well, I think that's it. Would you like to make any, for questions, would you like to make any closing remarks?
No, just, you know, everybody stay alert. We are, I know that I felt so much better since January 20th. But we're not out of the woods yet. There's a lot of work that needs to be done federally to reverse a lot of Trump's decisions, a lot of healing that this country needs, and certainly a lot of work that needs to be done in Florida. And and we've got to all do it together. So this is not the time to rest on our laurels. Although I have been enjoying hanging out with my husband, this is the time to get to work and continue fighting the fight and continue holding lawmakers accountable and talking about the issues. It seems like it doesn't matter at the time, but 10 years later, when we are transitioning our country to renewable energy in a serious way, it never would have happened if somebody didn't start talking about it 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So we got to keep pushing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and you're welcome to stay around if you want. We have Rich is going to run the sponsors for our Tom Paine event, and then also we're going to do something a little unusual tonight. This is more or less our monthly meeting, but people have really missed the interaction with other members and our friends. And so immediately after this webinar, we're going to segue right into a meeting so everybody can see everybody. And so when we close this webinar down, everybody that's out there, give us about 5 minutes and then we'll come back with that meeting and we can all have an informal discussion and enjoy each other's company for a little bit. So Rich, it's over to you. Thank you so much to those sponsors. That's we couldn't do anywhere near what we do without the good support of our members and friends, and so it's very appreciated. And we also every year do a little raffle, which it goes 50-50 divided between our two corporations. And so Rich, you have the floor to draw the raffle winner.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gene. We're going to try this here. So hopefully you can see me.
See you very well. You're not cheating. We can tell that.
My daughter Rebecca is going to pull the winning raffle ticket. We have over 400 raffle tickets in this bowl. I know it doesn't look like it, but they're in there. So Rebecca, go ahead and pull one out.
All right, the winning number, make sure I have it correct, is 3512740.
Perfect.
All right.
Can we connect that to a name, Rich?
Yes, that's going to take me just a minute, but I will
Okay.
pop it up here.
Now with this raffle, folks, it's the way it works, 50-50. So there's about $1,500 in the pot. So the winner will get $750, and that $750 will be divided between our two corporations. And the one thing that we're doing with the fund that everybody is probably very interested in, particularly in view of the program tonight, we're going to be building more microforests. It looks like that's definitely in the works with cooperation from the county and the city of Sarasota. So keep your eye on those. We'll be announcing those as we move forward with those. None of them have been finalized yet, but we're looking forward to doing that. And then we'll have our volunteer day on March 6th. So make sure you come out for that too. And so, Rich, do we have a name?
We have a name, and there it is. It's Philippe Koenig.
All
So,
right. Philippe, you are the winner. Or you can talk to us, Philippe, at the next meeting when we can all see you, because I can't pull you up on this webinar format. So unless there's any other announcements from the panelists and Margaret, we'll adjourn the meeting or the webinar and immediately go to the meeting, which will take about 2 or 3 minutes to get that up. Anything else, Rich, Margaret, Jim?
No, that's it from here.
Okay, we're going to sign off then. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much, Margaret. Very informative.
Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you, Margaret.